We're in a soggy San Diego on the final day of the regular season for West Coast Conference play. Welcome to the final edition of West Coast Conference This Week, presented by Geico, just ahead of BYU and San Diego meeting in the West Coast Conference Game of the Week. Well, welcome everyone inside the Jenny Craig Pavilion alongside John Crispin. I'm Steve Quist. Still a lot on the line here. Final day of the regular season. Both these teams have played well of late. Gonzaga has wrapped up the WCC title, but as we mentioned, still some things to play for both BYU and USD.
Absolutely, not just because of the West Coast Conference. Obviously, BYU locking up that 2 seed with a win. USD playing to lock up that 6 seed. But I think BYU's got something left to prove nationally. For them as an NCAA tournament team, some of the experts say they need to win this game. I think they're a lock. I think they're an NCAA tournament team for sure. But certainly they're going to have to do work tonight.
Yeah, a lot of storylines to discuss as we get deeper into this broadcast here. But as we look at the tail of the tape here in this game, you have two teams playing very well at the exact right time this season. I look at points per game here and wondering whether or not USD can score enough to beat a very good BYU team.
Well, that's the issue. USD is going to have to keep this game in the 70s if they want to have a chance, because this BYU team can just flat out score. And they're not even going to look to defend. When they get it going offensively, they'll stop worrying about defending. They're just going to get up and down the floor and score more than you, which I love. That should be fun for us.
Certainly. We feature two high-scoring juniors for each respective team. We'll start with Johnny D, and when it's all said and done, it's a certainty that he's going to be the all-time leading scorer here at USD if he stays healthy. And there's a lot of folks that would love to see him pass Brandon Johnson.
Well, he is an absolute gym rat. I mean, he is a coach's dream. He works harder than anybody else on the team, and that's why he's had so much success. That's what led them to this win against Gonzaga last week. You've got to love the Johnny D, and I hope, he will be a famous player down the stretch for this USD program.
Meantime, for BYU, they have a spectacular scoring junior in Tyler Hawes. He comes in 5th in the nation, scoring over 20 points a game, and when it's all said and done, he's likely to pass not only Danny Age, but Jimmer Fredette, who's sitting there with 2,599 career points. So we might be looking at BYU's all-time leading scorer. He's still got a full year to go.
And Jimmer Fredette's not a bad guy to be compared with. Sit in that same boat. Not bad at all for Tyler Hawes. And this is a guy, when he's consistent, he's unstoppable. So look for him to get it done early tonight.
Taking a look at Matt Carlino and his last game out. He's the reigning West Coast Conference Player of the Week, 30 points against Portland in his last game.
Yeah, Matt Carlino's a guy, another guy, just added resources. He can kill you as well. The 30-point performance to me was no surprise. Every night out, he can go for 30. So another added weapon for this already potent BYU offense.
Yeah, and did we mention the fact perhaps the best player on the floor can play 4 of the 5 positions is Kyle Collinsworth, and we're going to see. I can't wait to see him. I know he's been a nightmare in film sessions for Bill Greer. Jeff Turiel joins us now, and he's the Associate Commissioner in charge of Broadcasting and Communications, and we've got a very big WCC tournament coming up here pretty soon, and there are still some tickets available at Orleans Arena, are there?
There are, Steve, and we're really looking forward to this one because with a new format, it's the first time we've ever had 10 teams, men's and women's, in the event. So we've switched up the format, gone to kind of a traditional 10-team bracket with seeds 7 through 10 playing in the opening round, 1 through 6 get a bye to the quarter. So as you guys mentioned, games today are critical for seeding.
Yeah, and how has that been for you as a conference, making these changes, bringing Pacific into the conference? They've certainly been good this year, but how has it been for you in terms of making these changes and getting this tournament back to what it needs to be?
Well, the tournament's really a lot of fun, John, and bringing Pacific in gives us 10 teams so we can go to that more traditional format. And what it does, in the past, we've had our top 2 seeds get byes to the semifinals. But as the strength of our conference is growing, we really feel that we don't need to do that anymore, and we don't need to protect those top seeds because top to bottom, our conference is a lot stronger.
Jeff, we know that Gonzaga has the number 1 spot. BYU can lock up with a win that 2 spot. If the tournament started today, bring us through who would be where and who has the byes.
Well, yeah, this is entering today, Steve, and as you see, Portland and LMU, Pacific and Santa Clara would play in that first opening round. So that's why for San Diego, this game's so important because the 6th seed, as you see, gets a bye to the quarterfinals, whereas the 7th seed's got to play on Thursday night.
And Jeff, talk about as a conference, of course you want to see every team make the NCAA tournament, but what is a realistic goal for the West Coast Conference with all the exposure that you've gotten through TV, online, everything? This conference is getting a lot of national exposure.
Well, it is, John, and we really believe that we're a multi-bid NCAA conference year in and year out. The last couple of years, we've had 5 postseason teams across different platforms, and we really think, again, that we're well-positioned because teams are really playing well down the stretch. We got 2 teams here today that have won 3 in a row.
Jeff, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the game here today.
All right, thanks, guys.
Jeff Turlow from the West Coast Conference. All right, let's step aside, and when we come back on WCC this week, these 2 guys getting ready. They're going to chest bump. They're so excited about wrapping up the final edition of WCC this week. It continues right after this.
Here we go. Plenty of time. Brownridge long tray. I like this guy, Brownridge. The 2. Pause for 3 in the tie. Got it! By Collinsworth, Sharp launching. Oh! Unbelievable. Bobby Sharp!
Welcome back to Geico WCC This Week in Los Angeles. I'm Chris McGee alongside the coach, Dave Miller, and those are some of the best moments of the WCC conference season. Stay tuned because we're going to have our top 3 plays of the WCC season later in the show. I know you're fired up about that. But first, let's get you to the highlights from earlier this week. We start with the number 1 team in the conference. They're in Stockton taking on the Pacific Tigers. That's Gonzaga. It came out strong, already up 6. Jared Coleman along the baseline, sweet up and under, coach.
Well, I love the great body control, and then he uses the rim to protect the ball.
Pacific would settle in for the moment. Tony Gill in the post. Nice spin move. Tough shot off the glass. Ties the game at 16.
That's Dr. G to you, buddy.
Zags would immediately respond. Off the miss, David Stockton pass ahead to Kevin Pangos. Layup in between multiple defenders.
He knows how to do one thing. Score, baby, score.
13-0 Gonzaga run. Later in the half, more Pangos. This time, catch, shoot from 3. Got it. Zags up 13. Second half, they're up 15 now. Some high-low action right here, coach.
Yeah, it's some 4-5. Don't fight the power. Embrace it.
Ensuing Zags possession. Here they are in transition. Pangos finds Gary Bell Jr. open behind the arc. Drains it. Zaga runs away with it. They win 70-53.
That's a real Bell.
Oh, Coach, that was fantastic, by the way. Gonzaga team, obviously, Coach, they're not as good as last year. They don't have the big non-conference wins, but still they've been impressive. What's this team ceiling?
It's a high one, but you got to remember this program has made 15 consecutive NCAA appearances. And last year, you're right, they were a national 1 seed. But remember, they lost 2 pros in Olynyk and Harris, as well as Mike Hart, who I thought was the defensive pulse. But this year, they've got good wins at Virginia. They beat Arkansas, who swept Kentucky this season. And they've weathered the storm with those midseason injuries to Dower and Bell. The transfer from Louisville, Nunez, really has given them elite athleticism. But they're not going to surprise anybody. When you talk about the Zags nationally, this is a power. People respect them.
No question.
Been there, done that. Mark Few, one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in college basketball.
No question about it. All right, Coach, let's get you to more highlights. We start with USF and Pepperdine. Pepperdine at home. Firestone Fieldhouse, 3rd place, San Francisco Dons. Dons, they're going to come out strong. Cole Dickerson inside. Look at the footwork. USF up big early.
Well, that's what we call the show and go. You got to love the ball fake.
Ways to fight their way back, though, Coach. Malcolm Brooks, we like him. Catch, shoot, finish.
Target hands, locked, loaded. Brooklyn in the house.
All Dons the rest of the way. Avery Holmes, Holmes, he would light it up in the second half.
That's a good one, homie.
Moments later, this time from straight away, got it. 4 of 7 3-point.
Set a screen, you'll be open.
6 minutes to go. They're moving it around. Chris Adams, another 3-ball. Dons hit 10 threes on the night. They win 77-53.
Ain't no party like a 3-point party.
Oh, I like that. Got to invite us next time. St. Mary's hosting Portland. Brad Waldow entering the contest. The Gales are 4th in the WCC standings. Game tied at 20, and the Pilots are on the run. Bobby Sharp feeds Ryan Nicholas for the fast break
I'm on
layup.
a roll. Drop it like it's hot, Bobby. Drop it like it's hot.
But later, Pilots try to trap Stephen Holt, but the Gales are going to make him pay. Holt gets to Jordan Gusty, who sends it to Waldo. Where's Waldo?
There he is.
There he is. St. Mary's up 6, Portland down 9. Thomas Vandermarsh gets the feed. Baseline kisses it off the glass.
That's a big who knows how to seal the deal with his lower body.
God, is he getting better. 22 points, 17 rebounds. They can't contain Holt. He gets the pass outside the arc, buries it. Holt led all scores with 26 points, 7 61.
Wonder if he's ever been to the LBC.
Santa Clara, Loyola Marymount. They're right down the street from us at LMU. Entering the game, Anthony Ireland just 13 points shy of tying Bill Cartwright for 4th in WCC career scoring. That's beautiful. Second half, Evan Payne gets a steal, pushes it ahead. Ireland sent up Alex Osborne for the jam.
That was almost Payne in the lane, but Payne got it started to AI. You got to reward her running big.
Later, Ireland pulls up, drains the triple. That makes him the 4th leading scorer in WCC history. Couldn't have happened to a better young man.
Long live Ireland.
Under 2 minutes to play. Payne fakes, make a nice move, misses, gets his own putback. He had 27. LMU wins 75-71. Gonzaga got that win, clinched another conference title, 14-3. But check it out, BYU, San Francisco, St. Mary's, all battling for that 2, 3, and 4 spot. Pepperdine, what a great year for them at 8-9 in the 5th spot. Lot of great moments and plays in the WCC this year. We've combed through the footage and come up with our top 3 of the year. Let's check them out. Number 3, Bobby Sharp. Unforgettable performance back on January 23rd. Sharp hit 8 threes in the game, most of them coming late in the contest in crunch time. But, Coach, the most memorable three-pointer is right here.
Well, this is the one. Look how tough he's guarded. He's able to knock that down. We're seeing a 3rd overtime. I remember seeing that game with you.
And Portland would win 114-110 over BYU. All right, we got a pair of game winners here. First one, Santa Clara. Gonzaga down 1 in the final seconds. Left and Sam Dower hits a 3 near the top of the key. Zags go nuts.
Well, I love that high screen. Dower with the pop. He reminds me of a young Sam Perkins.
But that's okay because the second game winner would come from Jared Brownridge and the Broncos. Here they are down 1 on the road at St. Mary's. Brownridge, crossover, pull up, got it. That's big time.
Crossover, Chris. That's a killer crossover. Ooh. He creates space. That's a freshman from Illinois. How'd he get away from the University of Illinois?
Number 1, San Francisco Dons at home. Here they are on the fast break. Excuse me, Holmes. Can we get an alley-oop from half court? Mark Tollefson. What a finish.
Holmes, don't get so excited. It's simple basketball. Pitch it ahead with the pass, on time, on target. A little fat Joe. Lean back. Lean back. I love this. This is how they love to play. What an acrobatic catch. 2 hands, collects himself, and sticks his tongue out and says, I want to be like MJ.
Coach, I know this is a tough one, but we do this all year long. What's kind of been your favorite moment, if there is one that you can pick in the WCC?
My favorite moment is watching guys in this league develop. So many major colleges get a guy for a year, possibly two. But in the WCC, we see guys that come in as freshmen and they leave as seniors. They come in as young kids and they leave as grown men. I've always said this, in this conference, the goals are much higher than 10 feet. And life after basketball for these student athletes is sometimes bigger and better. But they give us certainly a lot of enjoyment watching them play.
Nailed it. Coming up next, Tyler Haws can be unstoppable on the basketball court, but we'll bring you the story of what he did when he couldn't play basketball for 2 years. This week's WCC Player of the Week is Matt Carlino. The BYU junior guard averaged 22.5 points, 3.5 assists, and 3.5 steals in wins over Gonzaga and Portland. Against the Pilots, he tied his career high with 30 points and set a career high by making 8 3-pointers, good for second in BYU history. Now, BYU has another junior guard that knows all about WCC awards. Tyler Haws, one of the favorites to win the WCC Player of the Year award, ranks 5th in the nation in scoring, and he's not just hoisting up shots. He's shooting an efficient 48% from the field, 43% from beyond the arc, and on top of that, he took 2 full years away from basketball to go on his Mormon mission. Plus, he's got some language skills, too. Here's Amanda Blackwell with the story.
Tyler Haws can speak the Filipino language, Tagalog.
Magandang umaga. Masaya ako na nagbabasketball ako sa BYU. Good morning. I'm happy I'm playing basketball at BYU.
Haws learned the language while on his mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Philippines. A mission that caused him to break from basketball for 2 full years, right after a very successful freshman season on a BYU team that won its first NCAA tournament game since 1993.
I remember sitting in the locker room after we lost in the NCAA tournament and feeling like, well, that was my last basketball game for 2 years. But my mission was the greatest experience of my whole life.
There wasn't much time for Haws to keep his basketball skills sharp, but he did the best he could.
Filipinos, they love basketball, and no matter where you are, they'll put a basketball hoop up, and they don't care if they're playing in flip-flops or barefoot, but there's always a game going, and so we'd stop and shoot around for a little bit.
After 2 years, Haws returned home a changed person, charged with readjusting to life in America.
It was hard. You're so used to being a missionary and so used to that lifestyle and being on a schedule, and so it was difficult coming back and trying to get back into regular life. My brother, my little sister grew like 6 inches.
And of course, after 2 years away from collegiate level basketball, Haws had some work to do. Coming back and playing basketball, how hard was it for you to just find your bearings again?
Yeah, it was a challenge, but I sat down with my dad and my coaches, and we put together a good game plan, and I just hit the weight room hard and started running and just tried to get my body back. And I remember catching the ball for the first time in a pickup game and being like, what do I do with this thing? It came back, and that was probably the biggest thing, is just figuring out like where you can be successful in the game again and figuring out who you are.
Haas didn't miss a beat. In his first season back with the Cougars, he averaged nearly 22 points per game and made the all-conference team. This season, he ranked in the top 5 in scoring in all of Division I basketball.
A lot of guys will come home, and it might take a year or so for them to really get back to where the team depends on them to win. Ty is one of those guys who got back and immediately contributed to the team, but as that season went on, we really depended on him and his consistency for our team to win.
I got to give a lot of credit to my coaches and my teammates. The coaches call good plays where I feel comfortable, and then got lots of good teammates who give me the ball in the right places where I can be successful, and then I've just put in a lot of time to be good.
Haas has changed as a person since the end of that freshman year nearly 4 years ago. His mission to the Philippines and his return to basketball have taught him a great deal about the world, himself, and his faith.
I learned kind of my potential as a leader. I learned just how good we have it in America. It definitely was eye-opening and a humbling experience. But the Filipino people taught me how to be happy and what's kind of most important in life. To put basketball down, after you've played it your whole life was a challenge. But I know that if you put God first in your life and trust in Him, He's going to take care of the rest.
For the WCC This Week, I'm Amanda Blackwell.
All right, let's take a look at today's schedule. Every game is big for BYU. They take on San Diego in the game of the week. Portland heading to Northern California to face Pacific. San Francisco hoping not to slip up on the road against Loyola Marymount. And, of course, it's always a must-watch when Gonzaga plays St. Mary's. All right, Coach, let's take a look at this BYU team. They are on the bubble right now, projected to be between 10 and 12 by all the bracketologists. What does this team have to do the last regular season game and in this WCC tournament to prove to everybody that they belong?
Well, number one, this afternoon, they can't slip up and lose at USD. USD is hot. They've won 3 straight, and San Diego just upset the Zags. But we know that BYU can score. But to me, it's going to be, can they get back in defensive transition? And then, can they guard Johnny D in the half court? That's going to be the task at hand. It's all about the defense. Then, when they get to the WCC tournament final, I think that should be enough to convince the selection committee. A loss in the semis could leave the Cougars sweating on Selection Sunday. But listen, it would be a disservice not to see Tyler Haws. He's already had a 48-point game this year, and the Cougar offense puts up big numbers. This is a guy that should be seen on the national stage during March Madness. He can score, but I also like their bigs, Mika and Austin. They've got a nice 1-2 punch. The key is going to be, can they get defensive stops now and then also in the tournament, both WCC and NCAA?
WCC tournament starts March 6th. We know the Zags and BYU are the favorites. Give me a team that can get hot and win this thing.
Well, San Francisco is certainly capable, but St. Mary's scares me. I love their senior leadership with their guards. Waldo certainly can score against anybody. Randy Bennett has been there and done that. That's my team that I think could go all the way.
All right, well, that's it for me and Coach. We'll get you back to San Diego after the break.
Welcome back to the WCC This Week, presented by Geico, inside Jenny Craig Pavilion. Steve Quiss, John Crispin on Senior Day here at USD. We feature a couple of teams that knocked off a ranked Gonzaga team last week. As we take a look at our X Factors, the big one for BYU is actually going to come off the bench here in this. That's a nice luxury for Dave Rose to have.
Yeah, it sure is. When you bring off this kind of scoring and rebounding threat off the bench, A, it's great for Dave Rose, but B, it's tough for that second unit for USD. That's a force coming off the bench. When this guy plays well, he gives them that added dimension. That's inside-out play. That makes BYU dangerous.
BYU has a lot of guys that can attack the hoop, so that means this is going to be a big game for Gito Koch right here, one of the better shot blockers in the West Coast Conference.
Yeah, it's clearly not his numbers that make him our X factor. It's his ability to actually change the game defensively, and that allows guys like Christopher Anderson and Johnny D to be aggressive on the defensive end, which they're going to have to do to shut down that BYU offense.
All right, Joe Lenardi and his bracketology real quickly said if BYU loses this game, they'll lose their at-large seeding. What do you think?
Throw out that East Coast bias there, Lenardi. And while I agree with him on a lot of things, I think he's wrong on that one. BYU's a lock.
All right, BYU and the Toreros coming up next. The regular season finale. BYU in second place, a USD team. They've won 3 straight, including that upset over Gonzaga. We're back to tip it off from San Diego right after this.